Thanks. All right. Well, I'm going to hand the floor over to Alan because.
Excellent. I've only had 2 hours to prepare, but I have a lot of questions. And we probably only have about an hour at the absolute most, given that we've spent 15 minutes trying to get it going. But we want to do this again later on. And if anyone's got any more questions, I'm sure there'll be lots of questions coming out. First of all, a big congratulations to Team Farfo for riding 11,700 and whatever miles, not kilometers, sorry, miles.
It was a little less than that. It was 11,437, I think, was our formally recorded one.
Give or take. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Over 11 days, we're all suitably impressed, and I, for one, can't believe how you did it, but maybe we'll get into that a bit later on. And also, I just want to acknowledge the winner, Nicole. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, which is just such an amazing thing to have another Wahine or woman winning the IBR. It's just absolutely amazing. So congratulations to her. And I have no idea how she rode 13,238 miles in 11 days. I've worked out the average speed and yeah, it's pretty impressive. So congratulations. For those of you don't know, and I guess because we're recording this, and there'll be a lot of people that will view this that won't know much about the IBR. But Chris, I know that you want to tell us a little bit about the IBR, and maybe also just tell us a little bit of how this year's IBR was different to previous ones, because there were a few changes made. But
Yeah. Okay. Well, so the IBR stands for the Iron Butt Rally. It's an event held by the Iron Butt Association every second year, and it's been held. And James and Bill, if you can correct me on any of these non-facts that I'm about to state here, it's been held since I think it was 1984 or six. Don't know. 1984, and I think initially, I think it went consecutively initially, and then there was a gap. Is that right? And then from there, from around 87, 88, somewhere like that, then it started up in its current every 2 year form. I think I've just made history up. I may not be correct. It's approximately correct. So we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the IBR taking on 11 days. It started off as a 10-day rally. And this event, which we just participated in, was the 40th anniversary of the 11-day format of the event. So the tagline is 11 days, 11,000 miles. You don't have to do 11,000 miles, but at some point, most participants want to actually achieve that milestone so that you can say that you claimed it. That was on our bucket list for this event. It was one of the things that we really wanted to try and achieve. Hey, James, I just want to say, feel free to drop out anytime. I know that we didn't arrange this with you, and I'm sorry that, now that you're sitting there in the limelight. In fact, what I'll do is I'll take the spotlight off you so that you don't feel pressured to stay. How's that? Feel free to shout out whenever you like, though. You're welcome to be here.
I'll stay as long as I can.
Okay.
But I probably will have to drop off a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you. It's lovely to see you here. Okay. So what was different this year? Well, for a start, the organisers and the rally master were very different. So historically and most recently, Lisa Landry and Jeff Earls have done a fantastic job over the recent history, and last year was the last year that they wanted to continue to do that. So they bowed out, and then there was a change of guards. So Paul Tong and Nancy Oswald and his group of helpers and spotters, they put together this year's rally. They did it they did an amazing feat in terms of being able to put something together with only roughly 6 months worth of time beforehand. This year there was uncertainty around whether this event was going to run, and so when they stood in to do that, they didn't have the full normal amount of planning time available to put an event together. So the people who did it, they were different. Also, the format was slightly different. Little changes here and there. Start times, for example. Um, Scoring apps, that was different. We've never had a scoring app in the IBR before. Um, uh,
Can I jump in? Just so
yeah,
in
please.
the past, it seemed to me that riders were presented with a massive long list of checkpoints, and with varying point values. And your task before you left at God knows what time in the morning was to try and completely plan a route Alaska to get the big ones and all that sort of stuff. And this year, it seemed like there were the routes prescribed, or were the loops, because there were a couple of small loops and then some big loops. They're not prescribed routes, they're just a prescribed number of checkpoints that you must meet.
Yeah. So um, this year they did have loops, right? As you've talked about. The loops weren't in any predefined direction. They didn't have to be done in any particular order. So a loop was just a container, if you like, of a set number of fixed bonus points that you needed to go and ride through and pick up. Um, so we had to, in planning, we had to decide what we wanted to try and take on. Then we had to look at what it was worth and how far it was, how long it was likely to take us, and so on. And then we had to make a commitment and a decision as to what we were going to take on. Um, in most of the IBR rallies that I've seen, there's been multiple legs, and the legs are defined by what they truly call checkpoints, and the checkpoints are hotel stops, right? So terminology is slightly different from how we would normally talk about checkpoints in our events in New Zealand. The mapping there is what they call a bonus point, we would call a checkpoint, right?
Right.
So in their terminology, when they talk about a checkpoint, they talk about a hotel stop, which is a mandatory stop where everybody needs to attend, and there's drop dead times of getting into those checkpoints. If you come late, if you turn up even a minute or second after that drop dead time, you're a DNF at each of the checkpoints, including the end one as well, right? So in this rally, as it was presented to us, when we saw the leg one pack, they gave us, we didn't know what was likely to happen in leg two or leg three, but in leg one, two of the loops that they gave us were extended loops. They were special in that if you chose to do those loops, you'd have to go nominate and tell the rally master, I'm going to be doing this extended loop. And if you did the extended loops, what it meant was that you would stay out for the whole 11 days. And the next time that we would be due back in would be on that 11th day at the normal finish time with everybody else. So in that regard, we had some special options this year that we didn't have, that you wouldn't normally have. And the way that they designed that and packaged it, they were designed to pay homage back to rallies of previous years. So
Yep.
there was a 1991 loop and a 2011 loop that we could choose from, which were the extended ones. For that, we were told during the morning briefing on the Monday morning, and that's a different thing, is that this year they didn't give us any of the rally pack until the Monday morning that we were riding out. Previous years and previous rallies, they've given it to us on the Sunday night, at or just after the banquet sort of finishes. They give you the pack, and then you have to go back to your room and pull it apart and figure out what you're going to do and do some last minute planning and stay up as late as you need to, and then you're in the car park in the morning. This year it was all on Monday morning, and we were, I think, was it a 5:30 start? I think it was, for the banquet, and then we got planning, and and then we were out. We had to be back down there at 11 o'clock, for the Odo check, for the final Odo check, the check in, the lining up in the car park. That all took roughly about an hour, and then we were let loose at midday.
So could you say that it was, I mean, not undermining, past rallies or even this one, was it a slightly simpler process in choosing which loop or route you were going to take?
Um, there were
Because it
things on
always
offer.
seemed to be really complex previously, that there were so many decisions that you could make that would determine where you ended up in the final
Right.
standings.
and there were this year too,
Right.
but for the fact that they gave us those choices of those two
Yeah.
extended loops.
Yeah.
So you had to evaluate which way do we want to go here? And they had told us when they presented the extended loops, they'd told us that the winner of the rally is unlikely to be from within the groups who choose the extended loops. So there was a very strong indicator there that you needed to hang on and wait for legs 2 and 3, and be picking off the menu each time in order to stand a chance of winning it. That was fairly clear to us.
Yeah.
The other carrot that they gave us was that for the 2011 loop, they actually said that anybody who goes out on that 11-day jaunt and does the 42 state capitals that they gave us and finishes it, if you finish it correctly and precisely and you manage to get all of your bonuses that you've claimed awarded to you, then you'll be a gold level finisher. So they recognized the effort that would be put in for the thing that we actually ended up ultimately choosing. And I think I'm also telling you why we went that way, because uh, Bill, myself, and Stella, we all very much enjoyed the 2023 rally, but we said that when we come back, we want to actually make good efforts to try to medal this year. Now,
So
if there was,
can you explain what the difference is between gold, silver, and bronze?
yeah, Bill, do you want to have a crack at this?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So a couple things. First, before we go into that, I don't think there's as much of a difference as we're making of these loops that the smaller loops. They were really no different than in previous rallies where they would have combos that you would have to get. Was that the main difference is that you had to pick at least one of them to complete. They didn't give you a route to go on. They gave you these bonus points needed, these bonus locations had to be done. So it's just like a combo that you would have had in previous years. So that really wasn't that different. As far as the medal status, it has to do with a percentage, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I think James could probably speak to this even better, is that it was a percentage of people,
Finishers.
finishers that, depending on their score, when they were ranked, it was down a certain percent was a gold level, next to was silver, then bronze, and then it was just finisher without a medal. So that's kind of how it was done. And I'm not sure if there's an exact number, and I believe it changes every year how they divvy that up. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's kind of what I believe is the way that decisions are made.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm
Can I
getting a
carry
nod
on?
from James, so I'm going to think I got it right.
Pretty close. Pretty
No,
close.
sorry anymore.
No, thanks. No.
Can I ask a few more questions then? I'm really interested in the team. Like, what are the benefits and what are the disadvantages of being in the team? Because it seemed like you worked really well together, and obviously you were a team the first time. The first time that you did it in 2020. No,
No, no,
no,
no. We weren't. We were very friendly and supportive of each
right.
other, but we weren't a team in 23. Um, and
So,
and as
Bill,
I said,
why did you decide to team up with these two errant New Zealanders? Like,
Well,
what
like I owed him money mostly, so that was I was kind of forced into it. No, no, actually, I think there's a lot of negative parts. I think to being a team, you're taking a huge risk as a team because, as we saw in this particular rally, a significant number of motorcycles did not finish the rally, and a lot of those were due to mechanical problems. So as soon as you throw in a team with another motorcycle, you've now doubled the chances of that team having a problem because of mechanical failures. So I think there are more negative aspects to being a team than there are positive. However, for me, Chris and I had spent last summer doing a practice run, if you will, going around the entire country basically seeking out those things that we tried to avoid during the 23 rally. Places like going into New York City, crossing the border into Canada, going into places that were just going to be hot and miserable places. So we didn't want to go to those things during the rally because we thought it was going to be a negative. So last summer we said, let's go do it when there's no pressure. And so we spent 2 weeks out on the road actually doing that and tackling it. In the meantime, going through a significant number of certificates as well. And we found that during that time that we did in fact work rather well together, which I kind of think has sort of morphed over the past few years from when Chris and I first met. And we've been sort of teaming up on different things along the way that it kind of made sense. And I enjoyed riding with Chris a lot. And so I said, for me, I really wanted to do it, but as I said to him, of course, we've added a risk on there, and I think our go-to at the beginning of it was that no matter what, we didn't want to risk losing our friendship over the team, and so that was our go-to. Was that if it came down to a decision between doing well in the rally and maintaining the friendship was going to maintain first position, that first priority, and I would say that through the entire event that never became an issue. The friendship is strong. We're still talking. He still owes me the money, but we're okay with that.
And your final drive on the BMW held up. So that was
that whole BMW nonsense is that's all hearsay crap. That they're not having problems with that. So I did offer to tow that Kawasaki around a couple of times, but we won't go into those details either.
So what are the implications if one of you drops out of the team? Like if one of you is not able to finish, what happens?
Well,
go ahead, Chris.
There's a point loss, right? So normally this would be across a single leg. Both parties, if you don't go and visit all of the same checkpoints or finish together, both sides lose 20% of their points legs.
Right.
Sorry, legs points.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just assuming here, so tell me if I'm wrong. And Stella, you might have to answer this, but so having Stella on the back of your bike, Chris, Stella, were you organising accommodation as you went? Like, what's your role other than like very successfully holding up that flag at every checkpoint? And we loved seeing the photos.
That's all good.
Yeah. What are you doing? Hopefully not sleeping.
No, there was no sleeping. No, the boys were sorting out the accommodation because it was easy for them to see on their phones where they were going to be and all that kind of stuff. So I think I was sort of more moral support and camp mum of keeping everybody in line and getting food and drink and all that kind of stuff and just making sure everybody was up at the right time. Bill.
Wiggling his toes in the alarm clock was going off.
So yeah, I was just basically trying to keep them under control.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I will tell you that she's underestimating what she did. Honestly, she's really downplaying it. She would keep us, not only just keep us in line, but she kept track of what was going on. She made sure that we all knew what the next checkpoint was, or not the next, but the next bonus location was. She found the codes for us. It made it so much simpler than having to go and look it up yourself, which you're doing that at speed. That takes some concentration off the road. So it allowed Chris and I to focus on our riding, where she would look those up. We'd get that information. She would, when we would get to bonuses, she would not only be the guest star holding everybody's flags for them, but she also would verify that we were inputting them into the app correctly, that they went into the app, that we both did the same thing. So she kept us on course at all times. So for moral support, it wasn't just moral support. Without her, I don't know if Chris and I would have lasted through the third day together, So she did a lot, and I credit her significantly for not hitting a DNF for us.
Because I think that one of the things is, obviously tiredness riding that far, that long, and mistakes happen. We know from just even riding a saddle saw 1600, you get tired. You think, God, did I take a photo of that receipt? Did I do this? Did I do that? Having that third person, Stella, to probably is that part of that. Just keeping you on track and making sure that you've ticked all the boxes and not dropping any bonus points. As we saw in the reports, people dropping bonus points and then having serious consequences as a result of that.
Yeah, on the because we take a photograph. Sorry, we log the book initially, so we've got it all on the phone ready to go. So going before we get to the bonus point, you'd make sure you got the right photograph. You'd be looking for what you were doing, and then when we were taking the photograph, it needed to be pretty much identical as to what was on the photo that you needed to take. So it was a case of standing in the right position. Are you slightly too far to the left? Are you too far away? Making sure that everything that was in the photograph was what you were taking a picture of.
Yeah.
And then putting it into the app, just cross-checking everything, making sure we're all doing it right, making sure it's, we get the ta-da at the end of the app when you've put it in successfully. So it's just keeping an idea of making sure we'd all done it properly so that the points didn't get dropped.
So the
But
notification.
but it was even more than that, though, Alan. I mean, she did even more than that. It was like when we would get to our stops for gas stops and such, it would give us a chance to all have a chance to get a little bit of a break because Stella would jump in, she would pump gas, she would run in and get the food that we didn't have to run. So it was a time saver as well.
Yeah.
And she wasn't doing it just for one person; she was doing it for all three of us. So we could be very efficient because of her contribution.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
So, how do you cope with tiredness? Like, what is it actually like riding 11,000 miles for 11 days? What sort of roads are you on? In comparison, I guess, to New Zealand, where we don't have any roads.
Maybe I'll jump in here, Bill.
Yeah.
I'd say that the riding is different to start with, clearly. So setting out with a plan to do 11,000 miles in 11 days, the maths is fairly straightforward, right? We knew that we needed to do at least 1,000 miles a day, and if we could at any point achieve a bigger day and bank it, then that would take pressure off as we went through. So certainly for the route that we chose ended up going up through the northeastern states, which the speed limits are slower than the others. The density of the cities in terms of spacing between them is closer. So the number of bonus points that we were claiming in each day on the eastern side was higher than the west, right? So we knew that the first portion of that was going to be the hard work, and if we put the hard work in, then things should get easier, right? So with in response to your question though, you can reasonably do a saddle saw here on the interstate roads. In the west, you can probably do it in 14 and a half hours without any issue. In the east, you might be looking at about 17 and a half, maybe 18 hours. And that would be, that's not stretching things too much because the speed limits here are much higher, right? So with that in mind, our base plan was to try and be off the road each night by 10 and back on by 4. Now, if you're able to do that, you can take that decent 6 hours each night off the road, and then you rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And honestly, you get into a rhythm. As long as you are actually still taking proper, a proper amount of decent sleep each night, then you don't end up compounding that tiredness too badly over an extended period. You can actually keep it up.
And
Right.
there were mandatory rest points. Were they every day, or was that every other day, or how long did they have to be?
It wasn't every day. They gave us a minimum number of rest hours that we needed to have on each leg.
Right.
Some of the legs. So even though we went for one big leg, we were still having to operate ourselves aligned with their 3 legs when,
Yep.
according to when they went back. So when they went back into the checkpoint, we actually had a big extended 8-hour mandatory. You have to be off the road by this time, and you can't be back on the road by this time, right? So that was actually, it was an 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. window. That was our minimum for those 2 nights that we had to take.
Oh, yep.
Right. So, but if you put those 2 special checkpoint days aside, then within each of the legs, they gave us a varying number of additional rest stops that we needed to have as a minimum. And there was minimum amounts of time between those. And they also then had to add up to a certain amount, a minimum certain amount for that leg. So, Bill, if I'm remembering rightly, leg one, we had to have a minimum of 2 4-hour stops, right?
Yep.
Space, but they had to be 16 hours in total. Was it 12 hours in total? Stel's going to her phone to have a look at the rally book now. But,
No, the 16-hour was the third in the third leg. That's where we had to have. There was three nights we had to be off the road for 4 hours a shot, which only gave you 12 hours off. But somehow you had to come up with 16 hours, and there had to be 12 hours before the end of one and the beginning of another one. So I believe our shot at that was we were going to do 6, 6, and 4 to get the 16. We ended up not doing that. We ended up modifying that as we went, but each one had a different amount that you had to get to based upon how many days were involved in the leg.
yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
And the
Chris,
same
can
with,
I?
oh, sorry, Kieran.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to ask you and Bill a question on the rest bonuses. In the past, you had to get a DBR, dated business receipt, to start your bonuses. They did something differently this year? Was it all done on the app this year?
Yeah, correct. It was all done on the app. So no receipts at rest bonuses at all, which made it really good. It was focused on the rest rather than focused on the paperwork, right? We the app itself, when you go into a rest bonus, you can start the clock, right? It takes the GPS coordinates of where you start the clock. That's your check-in. You can start the clock before you even select which bonus you're doing, which is even more efficient. So then
Yeah,
once you're on the rest clock, then you can go and select which rest bonus you're taking. We also had to provide a photo with every single bonus claim that we did. So the rest bonuses were no different. We had to take a photo of all of the bike with the flag, and in my case, my pillion too. Um, so that became the photo for the rest bonus submission. When we finished, you'd come back to your bike just before you left. You'd stop your clock, and then you'd review it all, and you'd hit submit, and that would be your rest bonus submitted. So Paul's app and his approach there has streamlined things an awful lot. He's added a few extra expectations in with that because you can preview the photo that you're supposed to be taking. You're expected to try and recreate it as closely as you can, right? So whereas previously it would be a case of go to this point and take a photo of that, and if you did it, you'd get the point. With Paul, there's an expectation that you make an effort to try and stand in the right place, that you get close to it or closer to it than they did when they scouted it, and that your angles are right and that you're capturing everything that they did. It's kind of, yeah.
And that was the same for meal breaks, wasn't it? I read somewhere that it was a 45-minute minimum for a meal stop if you had and you took a photo of your rally flag, the menu, the food, etc.
Good example of what you needed to put into the meal bonus photos in the daily reports. You saw quite a few
Yeah,
of those,
yeah,
and so when you consider what the list for a pillion team actually racked up to, it included the meal, the menu, the pillion, and the flag.
yeah,
Right. So the four things that we needed to get into that. Bill needed to do everything. He needed to do three. He needed to do the meal, the flag, the menu, and a plate of crayons was Bill's typical. Um,
His starter
Oh,
of a plate of crayons.
so Bill, you were doing your own submissions on the app, not it wasn't like a Teams. There was a okay. I didn't
No,
realize that. I thought as a team
yeah,
you should have one app, or one
yeah,
instance.
it was a team, but in the normal running where you had to go back to the checkpoint each time, a team only lasts for a single leg. And so at the end of each leg, you could then say, we're not a team anymore and move on with life.
Yeah,
So you have to maintain that
yeah,
separate status. With
yeah,
us, because of the fact that we were a team on a leg that never ended,
yeah,
there was no option. So normally, as we said before, if you screw up the issue, you
yeah,
lose 20% of your point on that leg. Well, we only had one leg. So it
yeah,
was 20% of your total points would have been gone, which for the way one we were doing wasn't as critical. But again, we went for it for a very specific reason. And I got to be honest, I'm very glad we chose to do the one we did. We knew we had no chance of being a podium finish. That was from the get go. We knew there was no way you could win it from doing the one we chose, but we knew we could finish. We knew we could achieve gold status, and that was our going plan was to get a medal. And of course, we were shooting for a bronze medal, and to have had the opportunity then to go for the gold, to me, it was a no brainer. It was like, that's what I want to do. And that's what we did, and successfully.
Fantastic.
I think we also enjoyed the notion of it, of less of that chaos, which always happens at the checkpoints. You know, the
Yeah.
they get in, they get scored, they go to bed, they get up, they hear about the next leg, the panic, the planning, and everything else. It's just chaotic. And the idea that we could get our chaos done once at the beginning, have it known what we were going to do throughout the whole thing, all three of us be on the same page, you know, with this once in terms of decision making, and then just simply get out onto the road and do it. For a team like ours, I think it was a really strong choice to make. It worked really well.
So, did you meet a lot of other riders at checkpoints, or were you pretty much riding on your own?
We saw the odd one or two maybe, but not that often, because some people were going clockwise, some people were going anti-clockwise. So yeah, you'd see the odd one here and there, but not that many really.
And you're not getting any sense of where everyone is, or I mean, because you're not having time to check in on the Spotwalla loop.
You think we didn't look at the Spotwalla page?
No, you didn't.
We took great interest in looking at where everybody else was. We were trying to figure out how many other people might be on this 2011 loop. Who else is crazy enough to be up in Maine trying to get a lobster claw? And then okay, so the others are starting to go back now. Who isn't going back? Where are they? You know, all that kind of stuff. No, we really did take a strong interest in the Spotlight page. And for
Who's
a
going the
few
other
days-
way, and we're going to cross in the Valley of the Gods?
Yeah. For a few days there was a rider that we caught up with in Oklahoma. I think it was Oklahoma City. No, well, anyway, in Oklahoma. We saw him there, and then I think he was following us around for another 3 days before we saw him again. And as Bill just said, we went right up to Montana and then looped back down, and we could see that he had been in Portland when we stopped further down the road that night. And then when we left again in the morning, we could still see him, you know, sort of trailing along. And when we did that out and back, we knew that there was good chance that we would see him on the road. And that was the first time that we knew it was the same guy that we saw 4 days prior. You know, so there were only 6 finishers who completed the 2011 loop.
That's amazing,
So-
because there were a lot of did not finishes this year, DNFs, weren't there? It's like,
I'm not sure that we'll ever find out how many actually started the 2011 loop. You know, I don't know that we'll ever see that in print. I'm not sure what they would give out that would show us that.
I guess
I thought he said 39.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 39 in combination with the 1991 and the 2011, there were 39 large loop riders that set out. But beyond that, we don't know what the splits were.
But overall, in the whole rally, the attrition rate was quite high. It seemed to be a lot higher than previous years. And do we know why that was?
No, I don't directly know why. I can only guess, and it would probably be wrong of me to guess.
No,
it was a combination of mechanical failures, people pulling out for personal reasons, people taking on too much, not making it back. Possibly some of the weather may have hit a few people a little hard as well. When we went out up towards the northeast, we had 3 days worth of rain. And we were getting to the point where we were sort of saying, if it rains tomorrow, we're going to have to go and buy some clothes, some underwear and some socks to keep our feet healthy and so on, right? But, you know, because when we pack, we've got, do you want to grab that washing bag? When we pack, we've got this thing. We sort of do daily laundry, right?
Yeah.
And this gets strapped to the top box at the back there. And on a good day, everything is bone dry by the time you're finished. So it's very, very easy to pack light and then rotate your washing and that kind of. that kind of thing. But when you've got 3 days of bad weather in a row and you're heading into a fourth potentially, you know, all of a sudden that plan wasn't so good.
Yeah. Just to comment on like the actual, were there any choke points? Like you mentioned not riding through New York City. Like, did you get close to New York City? I think you did get close to New York City. Like, were there any particular places that you thought, bugger, I wish we hadn't gone there, or I wish we'd
Boston.
gone a different route?
Boston's probably the only one that stands out for me. Yeah.
It was terrible for traffic. We hit it at rush hour, I think, and it was just terrible.
Yeah. Can you guys hear Stell properly, or do I need?
Yeah,
do I-
no,
Yeah.
still is good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Well,
good.
Chris, real quick, was it a specific route or just specific checkpoints you had to do in a row?
No. So the loops, as Bill described, the loops were simply like a combo set. They gave you a series of bonuses that you needed to ensure that you included. And the loop, but your loop, once you've chosen it, became mandatory, so you couldn't opt out on any of the elements that made up the combo.
But
Right.
there was no specific.
But there was no specific route, no specific order. It was just a specific set of bonuses that you needed to pick up.
Okay.
So in our case, we had to do 42 state capitals. We couldn't choose which of them they were. They gave us 42 state capitals, and we needed to then find a route through them that made sense to
Okay.
us. So we could have gone clockwise, anti-clockwise, done a figure of 8. It didn't matter. We just needed to pick up 42 by the time we were finished.
Got it.
You know, in that third leg, had we done the other way, interestingly enough, on this call with us, there was a loop called the James Owen Loop. Is he aware of that?
I don't know, and I think James is still there.
Yeah.
He's still there.
There we go. I've asked him to unmute.
Yeah, I missed the question. Janet just came in and I was telling her that I was on this Zoom. So tell me the question again.
The question was, were you aware that in the third leg of the IBR this year, one of the loops was in honor of you and was named the James Owen Loop? Were you aware of
I
that?
did.
And if so,
Yes.
were you involved with developing what that loop was?
No. Well, actually, Paul did call me maybe 3 months before the rally and asked me what my favorite bonus of all my iron butt rallies was. So, and I gave him a couple of options. But I did know Mike Brook actually sent me a copy of the pages. I don't know how he got them. Somebody sent them to him, but Mike Brook sent me all the pages that had the championship loops on them. So there was, one for Wendy Crockett and Derek Dixon and
You.
Marty Lear. So yeah, I was aware.
Awesome.
Okay.
I wanted to write it.
Did you ride this year,
Might
James?
No, I did not. I did
You
not.
still can.
Well, my motorcycle's out in the garage. It's ready to go. But
Next week, then, James.
next week, yes, that's right.
Just go knock it out in a cheeky 7 days. You'll be fine.
There you go.
Can we talk about maintenance and the rear tire, because we're all excited about the rear tire. I guess the rear tire that you used, and you can explain what that was, but did that require you not to need any maintenance, or were there oil changes along the way? Was there anything done to the bike?
No, look, I run a Kawasaki. You know what they're like. They're fairly bulletproof as long as you get to do an oil change within a few months of when it's due. It doesn't really matter what the mileage is or anything. So, and no, so I had no, apart from a potential tire change, I had no planned maintenance outside of Bill's house. So all the way out, rally, all the way back, maintain it. That's pretty much how we've done it. This was no different. That what the tire did do, prior to the rally, we were considering, do we ship a second? Because I've got a spare rim at home. At Bill's house,
We used last.
which we used in 23. And so we had a pre-fitted tire on that rim, which we shipped for 23 in a box. That had to get shipped to someone's house. He had to turn up with it. Thank you, Ken. Had to turn up with it at the event. We then had to change it in the car park, and then that had to get shipped back. So, logistically and cost-wise, there's actually a reasonable amount to sort out. Now, had we done that this year, that would have actually then created a problem for us because we wouldn't have been able to actually consider doing the 2011 big loop, not in the same way as we did, right? We would have had to have then wondered how and where do we put this, and how do we then hook up with it, and it would have just been a mess. Anyway, prior to all of this, Bill and I were talking. We were saying it would be a lot better if we could find a solution which would mean that I could run the whole rally without a problem. Wouldn't it be great if I had a tire like yours? Well, hey Bill, what's that tire you use? Yeah, and so Bill, and most of the GSA riders will run, if not this tire, something very similar to it. It's a Dunlop Trail Max Mission, and most of them swear blind they get 20 plus thousand miles, 18 to 20 or more thousand miles out of that tire, which is amazing mileage. Now it comes with 10.5 mils worth of tread new, whereas a Road 6 comes with 6 or 5.5, right? So you're starting with a slightly harder compound, and you've got twice as much tread. So I was thinking, well, hell, if I can get it to fit, then why wouldn't I? And it's a 17-inch rim. The width is different. So the Concourse normally takes a 190 width tire. The largest that they make in the Dunlop Mission, or Trail Max Mission, sorry, is a 170. It's only 1 centimeter off on each end, on each side, right and left, if you think of it that way, right? And normally when you put a 190 on, there's actually an angle coming out from the rim. The tire is actually wider than the rim is. So actually, when we mounted this, it mounts flush, right? And the height of it, we've gone with the tire sizes are 170 60 17, not a 190 55 17. Now the rolling circumference of that works out to be almost identical as the 55 profile 190. So your speedo's accurate. It's doing the same number of revolutions, all that kind of stuff. The weight rating and the speed ratings I checked them, they were fine. The only single consideration was the fitting width, right? So I had help from Luke so I ran one of these for the last 2 months in New Zealand. I had help from Luke fitting it. Yes, you have to use a strop. You have to tighten it to actually get it to touch and then seal and then bead out on both sides. The first time we did it, it took 10 or 15 minutes, and we were amazed at how easy it was to do. Similarly, when we were at Bill's garage fitting it before we left, hang on, I'm just going to mute. There's some outside walking going on with some wind noise. There we go. Yeah. So as we were, yeah. So anyway, Bill's garage also fitted up pretty straight. It was pretty straightforward. Yeah. So I took a photo of it and I shared that at the finish, and honestly, it looks like it's a new tire still.
It does.
I think I'm wearing through. If I go down there, I could probably take some photos now, and I'd probably be able to see some shapes of the blocks starting to form. But you know, it's such a good option. It really is such a good option, and I'd do it again. If I ever do the IBR again, there's a question mark over that because at this point we don't have plans to. And that's no reflection on how good this event was. This event was top notch. It was brilliant. But in terms of life plans and Stella and I talking about what our next few years look like, we don't currently have plans to return to do the IBR in 27. But if I ever did, I'd definitely use that tire again for sure.
So for all of the people listening here and people that will be listening in the future who, dream of doing the IBR, what do you think the bare minimum things that you can get away with? Because I remember I applied many years ago and I got in and I pulled out because I didn't have enough money. And I think Lisa Landry said to me, just hire a Goldwing, and you don't need the auxiliary tank. Just hire a bike and do it. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm sure Eagle riders would love me doing an IBR on a Goldwing. But do you? I mean, surely the auxiliary tank makes it a lot easier, but do you need 3 GPSs, and do you need all the paraphernalia? I think spotlights would be a good thing, but like, what encouragement can you give people that probably just think, oh, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to give it a go, I'm going to hire a bike, and that's about as much as I can do? Could you be a finisher?
Definitely the lights, because at night there's so much wildlife. You need to be able to see that.
Yeah.
You need to have eyes in the back of your head to see those deer coming across the road and everything. So definitely decent lights.
I think
Yeah.
I'll answer this. I'll try and answer this in a slightly different way. What we wanted to do was, when we turned up at that start hotel, we wanted to feel like we were on a level playing field with people who lived here. All right. So we made decisions to invest in all of the key elements that actually do make a difference. If you do skimp on those key elements, then you will feel it one way or another, right? I'm not saying this to put anybody off, but there's a reason why we did everything that we did, and ultimately they all helped and they paid off. Could you do it on a lesser approach and lesser budget? Yeah, I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could, and I'm sure that you could achieve a finisher status for that too. Because to get a finisher status in the IBR, in my view, anybody who is dog-headed enough and determined enough and plans well and thinks sensibly and logically and methodically and has stiction with a degree of no quit behind them, I believe they'll finish it. Right? Not everybody can do that. Not everybody's made of that stuff. But if you're of that nature, and if you want to give it a go, then give it a go. Because what it requires is stiction. You've got to get up, you've got to rinse and repeat. If you can do that and push through it, you'll get it done. I'd be really interested.
And you have to ride on the wrong side of the road.
Well, yeah, but honestly, it doesn't, that aspect of it doesn't feature in that much. It doesn't take that long for you to get your head adjusted to it. There's only, so in all seriousness about that point, there are only really a couple of key times in each day when you might fall foul of that. And they all start in car parks, right?
Yeah.
And if you're acutely aware of, I'm in a car park, I need to think about this and tell yourself, and I still did it today, keep right, keep right.
Yep.
Just when I'm leaving car parks, just when I'm leaving petrol stations, when I'm trying to figure out on what side should I enter the roadway. Once you're in the roadway, it all takes care of itself. The only other time is if you end up at a point where you're in a reactive situation, you have to grab brakes and swerve one way or the other, right? That's a lot harder because that's a natural instinct. And if you've been riding on the left side all the time, then to think, I've got someone coming, I can see lights and I need to stay to the right, because that's another one of those, similar to pre-make a decision not to swerve for small animals in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
Hit them on the road. If you pre-made that decision, then you're not going to go off the road trying to miss a possum.
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing applies with that. Pre-make the decision. If I need to swerve, I have to go right. Remember that, then you should be okay.
Yeah.
So
Good point. And I know about hitting animals, so
Yes.
and not swerving.
I said small animal. Sheep
Oh,
aren't that small.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, I don't think I've got any more questions, actually. I mean, well, I probably do, but it's 1:34 p.m. here, and I know that there's a few people like Andrew Thompson that looks like he's at work, but looking like he's trying to look like he's at work. I'm sure there'll be heaps more questions to come, and maybe we can do this again in the future. But honestly, it was just so good watching the trip and checking the reports and seeing whether you featured. Stella, you featured quite a few times. There was a lot.
I haven't even seen it. I don't know.
No, there was a lot of chatter here. It was very exciting, and Bill, it was so good to have you as part of Team Farfo, and you're an honorary New Zealander now because you're kind of outnumbered in the team. So we'd love to see you here and show you around New Zealand sometime.
They did
I've
actually
actually
come
been
over
there
last
and
year.
did I've got a saddle sore
Oh, you have?
1600 in New
You
Zealand.
have.
Yes,
Was that
yes,
last
Yeah.
year?
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, I
last year.
did.
Yeah. Oh well, I
So
didn't
speak
mean
about
you.
riding on the wrong side of the road on a bike you've never ridden before in the dark, in the rain. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I bet. I bet.
You'll be
Um,
fine, Bill. You'll be
Oh,
fine.
we're almost out of the curves, Bill.
all right.
I'm
Well,
Hey.
looking forward to getting my chance at that.
Yeah, Jim, you need to come over.
Yep. And
All
I
right.
was going to say, Alan, real quick, if any of you Kiwis want to come over and ride the IVR, there are some of us, like I rode it 2 years ago. I didn't ride it this year because of finances. I probably won't ride it next year. If Chris and Stella will vouch for you, I have an American rally ready bike. And I'm very
Wow.
serious on this. If any of you guys want to come over, there are people here that will have bikes that can help you out.
yeah.
And we'd be honored to help you guys do that. So if anybody's serious about it, get in touch with us. If I'm not riding it, well, actually Lionel Ramos has my tire because his blew out.
Yeah.
But once I get that, he finished on my tire, so I'm part of the IBR this year.
Excellent.
But if any of you guys want to come over, we'll help you out. We'll help you get it out there.
That's great. Thank you,
That's
Jim.
very generous. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Jim. You can be my friend.
that.
And I can see Shannon up at the top right of my screen going, oh, there's an idea.
There you go, Shannon.
Hey, before we wrap up, then let's just throw it open to the floor. If there's anybody up on the top there who wants to unmute and ask a question, or yeah, feel free, jump in, and then we'll wrap this up.
Andrew's not allowed because he's at work.
Yeah.
Hi, Andrew.
Shannon, have
well-
you got anything you want to ask?
Oh no, we as a class we were following along and making brochures about the places that they visited and using that as it. And one of the highlights for the kids was each day we were reading the reports, but then we got a phone call from Chris and Stella on the rally, and yeah, for the kids, actually surprised that they were calling them while they're riding the bikes. Sort of saying, you know, they just don't wear helmets just to have phone calls. But yeah, it was really cool being able to track and with our USA map that Chris and Stella had donated to our school, we're able to keep points of where they were going. So it was really cool. And you know, when we get back to school, to be able to share this with the kids, to be able to, you know, follow up on how it all finished, because you finished after we were watching on the last day.
That's right. Yeah.
It just
Then you had
finished up. Yeah. Just
Then
that
you had the
school
weekend.
finished.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You're away at the
Shannon,
weekend.
I want to be 10 years old and I want to go to your school, Shannon.
And
Yeah,
it
we've
was,
got very good looks. We all stop whenever we hear a motorbike. We're going to go out there and look, see what it is.
and it was extremely special, Shannon, to get that message from you, from all the
Yeah.
kids as well. That was just amazing. It was really heartwarming. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
And I've just noted down that
Chris was in tears.
comment that Chris said, because I think that's something that we're going to talk about is, you know, that stickability, because I think, Chris, what you were saying, that's really important. And yeah, having sometimes just doggedly going on and carrying on. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean,
it was awesome.
there's certainly some mornings when you're waking up and you don't really feel like getting back on your bike and doing it doing it again,
Or even knowing where you are.
but then it's kind of funny when the alarm goes off. You just jump out of bed and you start putting your stuff on, and 15 or 20 minutes later you're down in the car park and you're getting the bike ready and you're leaving within 25 or 30 minutes of the alarm going off.
or
know?
someone is grabbing your foot and shaking you awake. One of
Yeah.
the
We're in Amarillo, Bill. Amarillo.
two.
Well, actually, I do have one last question. Did you have an IBR hotel at one point or
Yes,
not?
we did.
Yeah,
One night.
we did, and that was part of the plan to try and so bucket list stuff, right?
Yeah.
As we said, we wanted to be able to claim. We did 10,315 miles in 23, and it felt I mean, we got finisher status, but it sort of felt like we just missed it with in terms of what we rode. We should do it harder. We should actually do the tagline. And so getting out and doing the 11 was something that we really wanted to do. Anyway, in terms of getting ahead, um, I'm sorry, checklist, bucket list stuff. Doing an IBR, using an IBA hotel
You need to explain what that is.
was also up
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah,
staying out overnight and doing 2 days back to back while all you're doing is resting on park benches. Now it might sound a bit silly, but we all three of us wanted to do it so that we could say that during the IBR we had used the IBA hotel. Bill's pulling a funny face, but he was in on this plan. He definitely went in on it. Anyway, the other thing which that did was it really cut down. This was on one of the nights when we didn't need to have a rest stop, and we'd already fulfilled the amount of accumulated hours across the leg that we needed to rest for. So for us, it was we can stay out as long as we want, and however long we stay out and how little ever rest we take, because we're feeling recharged from the 8 hour break that we had, we can then bank that and get into the next checkpoint early, or sorry, the next rest break early, and that's how you bank progress, right? So we did it deliberately for a number of reasons. One was to make progress and bank the extra hours, and the other one was to actually say that we'd done it.
fantastic. Did you have sleeping bags, or did you just lie in your clim gear?
Oh, we just
Found a bench and slept on
found a
it.
bench. I actually ended up on the floor, I think. And I think we only did 2 hours at the first place, and then we did maybe another 25 minutes at another spot later on in the day when we got tired during the day. It's kind of funny. You end up with two lows. I personally end up with two lows during the day. One, three if you were riding through the 5 to 6 a.m. period, but otherwise there's one sort of that kicks in at around 9:30 and another one at 3:30.
Yep.
And they don't last particularly long, but maybe 15 to 20 minutes. So if you can keep your concentration, if you can keep yourself going through them, and you pick up afterwards, so you can actually potentially use a degree of um, coffee stimulant through those, but not in a sustained manner, just to get you through those two. And then if you do that, then for the rest of the day, generally you'll pick up. That's what I found.
Fantastic. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd love to share? It sounds like a job interview, doesn't it? Bill, something
Highlights
from
and
you.
lowlights.
Anything
Yeah.
from you, Bill?
Wait.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That's a running problem we had throughout this. Bill and Stell sound very similar to me with old ears, and so I thought you were asking Stella. It was a running problem. I promise you through comms on the entire thing. I will tell you that I had a great time on the 23 rally without a doubt, and I did that by myself. But when I look back on the 23 rally, I had a very unique situation where I believe it was like on day 8. So in the third leg, I'm out in the middle of Idaho riding along, and another one of our fellow long distance riders came up alongside of me. And at that point in time, I was way down there in motivation, and I was just dragging. I was having a hard time continuing, and was going through all those thoughts you have of like, what am I doing here? And when she pulled up alongside of me, we spent 24 hours together riding and went to several bonus together. It just happened to work out that way. And so our running joke was we had to call in and make sure they knew we were not actually a team. So we were listed as hashtag team, not a team. But that boosted me, and that memory was another one of the motivators where I said, I'm happier when I'm around other people. And so the chance to do this with someone that truly, Chris and Stella are they're not really friends anymore. They've become family for us. And so to go out there and ride with them for 11 days, it was more of a vacation, honestly. I had a great time with them. At one point, I lost my voice. It's just starting to come back now. And that was because literally I was laughing way too much. The jokes and the banter nonstop through the day. At no point did I ever feel down like I did in the first rally. It was a completely different experience that I attribute to a lot of things, but mostly I give credit to that team atmosphere, that camaraderie, that shared experience, and just a great time. So for me, I know there's a lot of downside to having a team. For me, it totally outweighed by just spending that time with people that you really enjoy being around.
Fantastic. And parting comments from Chris and Stella.
You want to go first?
No, go for it.
I just want to say that I think, we were incredibly proud of what we managed to get done. We put it all out there. The last 24 hours for us, we were ahead, but we were able to manage our time. We had time spare. We had about 13 hours up our sleeve, and we hit bad weather. We hit a really terrible storm cell that we were actually following behind, and we spent time. We spent time managing that. We had time to spend, and we did it. We made throughout the whole thing. We made good decisions, sensible decisions as well. We put ourselves in a good place with a good hard effort up front. So the first half of the first 5.5 days, when we got to that halfway point, we knew that we were 500 miles up on where we needed to be. And we knew it was going to get easier from there with the Western States because they're quicker and faster and flowing and fewer bonus points to stop for and everything else, which is how we ended up with 13 hours up our sleeve at the end. But we spent it. And the last 12 hours coming in, I was bushed. We were knackered. We left it all out there. We didn't have anything left by the end of it. I know Bill's saying, we had a great time and it felt like a vacation and stuff like that too. But actually, at the end of the day, there's some pretty hard riding done. It was a great experience, and totally pleased to have done it with Bill and with Stell. Incredibly proud of what the three of us managed to pull off. Yeah, so that's my parting words. Thank you.
Fantastic. And we're all very proud of you as well. And it was great to watch the progress and just, it was so exciting for all of us. And we did feel like we were riding with you. So well done, Team Fafo. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And,
all right, no problem at all.
And thank you all back home for all the support, all the messages and everything as well. That meant a lot.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to know that you're all behind us and you've enjoyed watching it. So that's been really good.
And we would have loved to have shared more, but obviously you're all aware that
Yeah.
there's a social media ban on, and we can get pinged even for liking someone else's posts during that period. So there's stuff going on in the NZ Distance Riders stuff, like my automated posts, welcoming new people, and I'm reaching out to the likes of Mike Kneebone to sort of say, hey, by the way, that's not me doing that.
Yeah.
And then and we can't chip in and add anything to the banter that's going on. We just have to watch it. But we did.
We were having wonderful conversations without you. So
I'm sure you were.
It was all good. It was all good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
We're going to leave it there. And thanks to everyone that joined. And I look forward to sharing this with everyone else who wasn't able to attend today. There'll be a lot more questions, I'm sure, but it's been a fantastic time.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much for the interest. We appreciate it.
Safe riding for the next day and safe journey back to New Zealand.
Thank you very much.
Okay, cheers. Thanks, guys, for joining in.
Nice to see you all.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
See
Jim.
ya. Bye-bye.